Let's get on with this lecture. So today we're going to talk about vitamins and minerals, okay? And vitamins and minerals act as antioxidants, and the body uses them to prevent damage to molecules, okay? It's important for protecting the cells from oxidation. We've seen oxidation 2 lectures ago, I think, or 1 lecture ago. But basically, these are the nutrients that are important in your diet that will help protect from oxidative damage, okay? Vitamin E, C, A, and A, there's also beta-carotene that is going to make vitamin A, selenium, but there's also copper, iron, zinc, all those minerals. It's just they're required in lower amounts than these guys, okay? These guys play a bigger antioxidant effect. Okay. Now, as you can see here, the top 10 rich foods in terms of antioxidants, they are multicolor. Okay. The reason why they are multicolor, and there's many of them, it's because because pigments in fruits and vegetables act as antioxidants. Okay. This is why we tell you to eat a varied kind of diet that has the different colors. Eat your greens and your oranges and whatnot. It's because each of them has a specific antioxidant, which is good for you. Dark chocolate is the strongest. Okay, dark chocolate is extremely healthy. It's very good for you. Okay, so oxidation reduction. You guys killed this on the quiz. Don't think that I'm teaching you anything here. You've seen it in all the chemistries and probably in other biology classes. But just to remind you, oxidation is when there's a loss of electron, and so the charge becomes more positive. Reduction is when you're reducing the charge, and so that's a gain of electron. Okay. Okay, so basic chemistry. So stable atoms have an even number of electrons. Okay, this is in its outermost orbit. If it is uneven, basically there's an odd number of electrons. What happens is that you're creating these radicals, and these radicals then are quite reactive because they want to react with another electron. Okay, and so they produce these unstable atoms which will try and interact with whatever is around them. Okay, and these are called free radicals. There's a subclass of free radicals that is quite dangerous for your body. It's called the reactive oxygen species. That's just when an oxygen molecule becomes a free radical. Okay? So oxygen in nature occurs mostly as a diatom, O2. Okay? The reason for that is to stabilize the outermost orbit. Right? And so if you destabilize that, then you produce these oxygen species which are reactive to whatever is around them, and these are the ROS. Okay. Why is this important for us? Well, if you're creating these species that are reactive to pretty much anything, for example, here you're producing this superoxide anion, which is basically a diatom of oxygen, but one electron is lost or is unpaired. What happens is that this will interact with other molecules and steal from them the electron. Okay? And you don't want that. So it's going to oxidize them because it's stealing the electron. So this becomes reduced. Make sense? And there's a few different types of them. These are the basic ones in terms of reactive oxygen species. But you can imagine this process with pretty much any molecule in your body, right? Any molecule has these atoms, and these atoms can be oxidized. So the problem with this is that it can react with proteins, DNA, lipids, phospholipids, etc. Okay? When it reacts with DNA, it can cause mutations. When it causes mutations, you end up having defective proteins, or sometimes you can even not produce the protein. And as you know, mutagenesis of DNA can lead to cancer. It's one of the main causes for cancer. The LDL, if you remember, the low-density lipoprotein, if you remember from the atherosclerosis slide, we were talking about this. The LDL, when it gets oxidized, you have the immune system coming, and that causes plaque. Phospholipids, you can break the membrane of the cell, you can break the membrane of the mitochondria and whatnot. And then proteins is just making them more or less reactive. Okay, but we'll get into this more specifically. First, how are they produced? So every reaction in your body has a chance of producing radicals. Okay, in fact, the immune system of your body uses free radicals to combat bacteria. So when there is bacteria, or when you have an infection, the immune system will come there and start producing these reactive oxygen species, and they will be used to damage the bacteria. Okay, so these can be produced here, and there are many reactions in your body that can produce free radicals. One of them is oxidative phosphorylation. Remember, the last step of oxidative phosphorylation is the conversion of oxygen, and so that can sometimes produce reactive oxygen species. Obviously, pollution, sunlight can excite atoms and lead to them becoming free radicals. Basic stuff, toxic substances, radiation, smoking. These all have been shown to produce these radicals. Okay. So how does this work? So when you have your membrane, for example, and the free radicals come in and interact with parts of the membrane, what they're going to do is that they're going to damage the structure, for example, of the fatty acids, and which are most prone to these radicals. And when you do damage them, then you break the structure of the bilayer, and this can lead to, for example, things coming in the cell or outside the cell, which should not be in there. Okay, so this can disrupt that. Vitamins, for example, some of them will come and get inside the membrane and act as these quenching molecules that will just take up that will interact with the free radical. Okay. Now, obviously, if you interact with a free radical, you yourself become a radical. And so if you become a radical, you can then do the same thing and continue transferring. So how do vitamins protect you then if they themselves get oxidized? Well, there is a difference in reactivity based on the overall structure of the molecule. What I mean by this, superoxide, which is a reactive oxygen species, is a lot more reactive than an oxidized vitamin E. Okay? Because vitamin E, its structure is made in a way where when it gets oxidized, it doesn't matter, it is still stable. Okay? While superoxide is quite dangerous. There is no way to protect, there's no way that the superoxide will not do damage. While vitamin E, because of the complex structure it has, even though it gets oxidized, it will just change conformation in a way where it becomes less radical. Okay, so this is why vitamin E, in part, is important. So I guess this is what I just explained. So basically, the oxidants will try to steal electrons from other places, and antioxidants just prevent this by quenching this reaction. And so they will act as a secondary target to these oxidants. Okay. What else? This here I said. Yeah, antioxidants can do this in many ways. They can either take up they can either give an electron, a hydrogen atom to the free radical, for example, in the case of superoxide, or they can also donate their electron to stabilize the outermost orbit, right? And this will reduce their ability to do damage. Antioxidants work mostly as cofactors. They sometimes work, so I told you as vitamins act as cofactors. It's because they will go and interact with proteins that are going to produce these radicals, and then so they will make them, they will reduce their ability to, or decrease their ability to produce these free radicals. So let's say, for example, you imagine I don't know, vitamin E interacting with a protein that's involved in the conversion of oxygen into something, water. This process is inefficient. And so if you don't have vitamin E, what's going to happen is that the oxygen can sometimes, instead of being transformed into the water, will be transformed into a radical. And so to prevent that from happening, the antioxidants, which are the vitamins, will interact with these enzymes and protect or prevent this from happening, okay? And there's many enzymes that interact with antioxidants. For instance, there are some enzymes that are important for preventing lipid peroxidation. So this is basically the oxidation of lipid molecules that turns them into dangerous species. And so there are enzymes that are important for breaking down these oxidized fatty acids, okay? These oxidized fatty acids will interact with the enzyme, which is bound to the antioxidant, okay? Make sense? There are enzymes that also are important for making more vitamin antioxidants so that you can increase the capacity for quenching the free radicals, okay? For example, you've probably heard of superoxide dismutase, catalase. These two are enzymes that you hear about a lot in biochemistry. So superoxide dismutase will convert basically superoxide into hydrogen peroxide. And superoxide is extremely reactive. So when you turn it into hydrogen peroxide, it is still reactive, but a bit less, okay? Catalase then will convert hydrogen peroxide into water, okay? Let me just move this here. Jeez, swear this software. Okay, glutathione peroxidase, this one you probably never heard of, or maybe you did, but most probably not. So glutathione peroxidase will convert hydrogen peroxide into just oxygen, okay? This is, so just information for you guys. You've probably studied signaling pathways. So more recently, we're discovering that hydrogen peroxide can act as a signaling molecule. So its effect is not only negative. Sometimes it has a positive effect. For example, should I get into this? Yeah, quickly, why not? So when you're undergoing oxidative phosphorylation, you'll be producing this hydrogen peroxide. And so this hydrogen peroxide can act actually as a signaling molecule to tell the cell to decrease production of energy. Okay, so we're discovering a lot of things about these. Superoxide remains only damaging, but hydrogen peroxide is becoming more and more known as a signaling molecule. Okay, little information. So obviously for these there is also an RDA. Everything or most of the things that we eat have an RDA linked to them. So these are the RDA for these different vitamins and for this mineral. Obviously, these are also toxic, and so they have upper limits. Unlike proteins, these have numbers for their upper tolerable intake. Okay, you cannot eat unlimited amounts of vitamin A, for example. Yeah. No. If you need numbers, I will be giving them to you. Yeah, I don't even know them, so because you can find everything online, right? So why learn it by heart? But just the idea that they have these recommended doses. The minimum you need, for example, for vitamin E to be healthy is 15 milligrams. And actually, later on in the lecture, I will tell you about vitamin A. So this is something where I think I had a deficiency in when they discovered my celiac disease. And because many of the symptoms that come with vitamin A deficiency, I had them. And so I think the celiac disease caused the vitamin A deficiency, which caused the other stuff. So I'll explain this in a little bit. Vitamin C is water soluble. Okay? I'll explain this in a little bit. Men and women have different amounts of fluids in their body. So this explains the difference in amounts. Okay, just a little information there. Okay, let's go through them one by one, and then go home. Simple. So vitamin E, fat soluble. It's absorbed with dietary fats. So this comes from your food. It will enter the body as within the kilomicron and then transported from the liver to other places within the VLDL and LDL. The structure looks like this. It has 2 rings and a carbon tail. This is what gets oxidized. It's a carbon tail. Okay. But because this carbon tail can then turn on itself, it will basically act as a quenching molecule for the free radical. Okay. So it will enter the cells. So when you absorb it and it's being transported through the kilomicron, then it will enter the cells when the lipoproteins will be disassembled by the lipoprotein lipase, or when the LDLs bind to their specific receptors. Remember, there are receptors on the lipoprotein that when they bind to where they have to go, they kind of release what they have inside. So vitamin E follows the same pattern as your lipids in terms of absorption. So that means that it also gets stored like lipids, and it will be stored in adipose tissue and cell membranes. Now, you would think that because they have a protective effect, then you can just eat unlimited amount of them. But actually, it doesn't work like that. Okay? The reason for that is a little bit of stress is good. So let me explain. So there's this theory that says if you don't have enough stress, your body doesn't know that it needs to protect itself. And so it's not going to activate any mechanism to protect itself. If it has too much stress, it's too toxic. So there's a right amount of stress that your body needs to be able to function. Okay? And so if you take too much antioxidants, you will protect yourself from the stress. But it will affect all the other processes that are important for defending you against whatever you have. Okay, and if you take too much of it, if you take too much of it, you'll protect yourself from everything that is oxidant. But then you will deregulate your cell repair mechanisms, for example, and that's not good for you. So you need the right amount of vitamins, and this applies to all molecules, right? So, a little bit of kind of structure and numbers. So, vitamin E can be found as 2 forms. Tocotrienols, which are not active, and there's 4 variations, alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. And tocopherols, this one maybe you heard about it. This is the biologically active form. Okay. It is the most potent. It's found in food and supplements. So if you're buying your Centrum, this is what you'll find in it. And the way they write this, you've probably seen this 1 IU. If you've ever taken supplements, you've probably seen this. Vitamin D would be like 2000 IU or something like this. So why do we have these numbers? So the way you express it in equivalents of alpha tocopherol, because vitamin E can come from many different places, and so to put every source together, you just call it alpha tocopherol equivalents, right? Because vitamin E can be divided in all these 4, right? And so you could just say milligrams of vitamin E, but it's not really true, right? It's more how many, let me explain. How many equivalents of vitamin E is it, okay? You can also measure it in terms of milligrams or international units. So if you see on the food labels, alpha tocopherol equivalents, it's just referring to the amount of all the sources of vitamin E that you're getting, because this one can be converted into this one, converted into this one, converted into this one, and the opposite is true, right? And so all these are contributing to this, okay? And so to understand, and they don't all get converted at the same amount. And so because they don't get converted into the same amount, it's hard to determine what your vitamin E is actually, Okay? So the way to say this is we express it as alpha tocopherol equivalents. I'll show you another example later on for vitamin A. It's going to become a little bit clearer. So in food, when we're talking about 1 alpha tocopherol equivalent, it's equal to 1 milligram of vitamin E. Natural supplements, so supplements that come just from basically foods or whatever origin that is natural. So we consider 1 international unit as 0.67 milligram of alpha tocopherol. And then if you're talking about vitamin E produced in the lab, then 1 IU is equal to this number, okay? So now if you go on your food and you see these IU numbers, you understand, you can convert them into the amount of actual vitamin E that you have, okay? And most vitamins are written this way. Like, anybody taking supplements? No? Okay. Yeah, you'll see it in these numbers, maybe later on, if you ever need them. So this is what it means. Is this clear? Kind of? No? Okay. So what does vitamin E do? I showed you earlier in the plasma membrane, right? It goes and sits inside the plasma membrane to protect the fatty acids from being oxidized. It protects the LDLs also from oxidation, and this will lower the heart disease risk. Usually it's added to oil-based foods, skincare products, to reduce the chemical degradation of these products and their spoilage. It's important for nerve and muscle development. So vitamin E affects pretty much everything. So again, as I told you, if you see a lot of things getting messed up at the same time, it's one of the vitamins, most probably. That's because they have an effect on pretty much everything, right? Every cell has the same enzymes that are going to require vitamin E as a cofactor, okay? They have them just at different levels. Catalase is found everywhere. Superoxide dismutase is found everywhere, right? And so these enzymes, the plasma membrane, you have a plasma membrane everywhere, right? So vitamin E goes in the plasma membrane everywhere, okay? So whichever part fails is usually the one that is lacking vitamin E. So if you see muscle problems and then it's due to vitamin E, well, it means that your muscle cells probably are lacking vitamin E, okay? It plays also a role in immune system. And if you don't have a good absorption of vitamin E can promote the absorption of vitamin A, okay? And you'll see how vitamin A is quite dangerous. It's, I think, the most dangerous maybe of the different vitamins, okay? So, how much do you need a day? The minimum to be healthy is 15 milligrams per day, okay? And if you have below that, your blood cells will start breaking up. Why are they rupturing? Why are they undergoing hemolysis? Well, it's because now you have these radicals that are attacking the membrane because you don't have enough quenching power to protect them from this oxidizing effect. And so they will start breaking. And if they start breaking, because they're not able to keep that structure, that globular structure, this will lead to anemia, for example, okay? And there's a maximum amount that you can take a day. That's about 1 milligram, 1 gram, sorry. Beyond that, it becomes toxic. Okay, where do you find it? So this is just for your information, but pretty much all the healthy food. Simple way to kind of tell yourself, where do I find all the nutrients? You know it, right? Nuts, seeds, legumes. Clearly not in McDonald's burger, right? It's the stuff that you've heard all the time throughout your life, so this should not be a surprise. Okay. One place where vitamin E is found is in the wheat germ. And so this is what I was telling you about celiac disease for me. I'll get back to this in a bit. Vitamin E is not found into processed foods and whatnot, and it's just because it is destroyed by heat, light, and many other things. Okay. Okay, too much vitamin E. The main problem with vitamin E is that it can interact with anticoagulants, and it can actually lead to hemorrhagic stroke. So hemorrhagic stroke is basically called bleeding stroke. And what happens is that vitamin E, when you have too much of it, it's going to break up plaque in your arteries. And when it breaks the plaque in your arteries, parts of it are going to travel in your body. And if they travel in your body and they reach the smaller venules in your brain, or the smaller arterioles in your brain, they will actually explode because they will clog them. And so when they clog them and they explode, that leads to this hemorrhagic stroke. So that arteriole broke in your brain, blood is seeping in your brain, and then at some point there's pressure happening on your brain, and that can lead to a stroke. Okay? It can interact with anticoagulants, and so this is quite dangerous for the fact that if you're interacting with these anticoagulants, then you'll end up preventing them from doing their effect, and coagulation can happen, and that leads to heart attacks. Okay, this is one of the tests they do before they give you anticoagulants. Okay, the level of vitamin E. Obviously, if you take too much of any food, you're going to have GI problems. Right, this is just your body trying to expel everything that is of excess, and so you'll have nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, and whatnot. Okay. Not enough. This is rare. It's rare that you don't have enough vitamin E. Usually, it's associated with people that cannot absorb fat properly, which is somewhat rare in itself. But basically, as I told you, it will break the blood cells because it cannot prevent their oxidation, and the membranes will just rupture. That leads to anemia. It also plays an important role in vision because of the absorption of vitamin A. It helps in the absorption of vitamin A. And loss of muscle coordination, speech, immunity. Remember, vitamin E is an important antioxidant, and so it interacts with the immune system, because one of the way the immune system will kill pathogens is by attacking them with these oxidants. All right, and so it requires these antioxidants to balance the level, because if you have an immune system that just comes and rushes to the site of infection and just starts throwing high amounts of reactive oxygen species, but then you don't deal with those when you're done with the infection, they're going to start destroying your cells, right? And so you have to protect your cells. Okay, we'll talk about selenium in a second. Simple? Okay, vitamin C. Take vitamin C if you're sick, you're going to feel better. Eat oranges, those little pills that have like 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Does vitamin C help you get better? Anybody? So this has been a very controversial idea for a long, long time. The final answer is it does help you. It actually helps the immune system and makes it stronger to fight the infection. So vitamin C is very important. It is water soluble compared to the other two that we're going to talk about. And because it is water soluble, you can take a lot of it. It's not going to do much to you if you are young and healthy, but as you grow older, there is an upper limit that you have to respect. And vitamin C is absorbed just like his buddy glucose, so via active transport, because it is water soluble. It does not require anything to carry it. Okay? And it can even go through the membrane by simple diffusion. Okay? There are two forms. You have the ascorbic acid, which is the vitamin C that you kind of probably know about, and then the dehydroascorbic acid. And the only difference between them is the loss of two protons, two hydrogen atoms. Okay? Make sense? Can you see this structure here? So if we take a look at ascorbic acid and you're losing this, right? you're expecting it to become a radical here, right? But it does not become a radical because this structure here allows for the double bond to form. And this stabilizes the structure. And so this is why ascorbic acid can act as a quenching antioxidant. It's because even though you lose this proton here, what happens is that the O will form a double bond with the C, and that will stabilize the structure. And so the radical is not produced. So now you can imagine this one, the ascorbic acid, will be protecting you from whatever free radicals there is and will be transformed into this form here. Okay? And then this one can be regenerated through the addition of these two protons. Simple? Yeah? It does many things. The first thing that ascorbic acid does is that it acts as a kind of a stimulant of your immune system. So it helps your immune system in making more cells, right? Additionally, obviously it acts as a quenching molecule because your immune system uses these reactive oxygen species to attack the pathogens. And so the ascorbic acid will kind of balance that amount. Yeah, exact. In part, there's many things that it does, but in part. Now, the slide is a bit dangerous. So vitamin C will protect, again, the LDL from oxidation. It will protect it's the one that protects the lungs from ozone and from cigarette damage. That does not mean that you can take 10 kilograms of vitamin C and smoke whatever you want and it's going to protect you, okay? It just means that it helps in the protection against smoke damage, okay? And it enhances the production and the production of white blood cells, which are your immune cells, okay? One of the things that's protecting you against cancer is vitamin C. So vitamin C actually will reduce these nitrosamines, which are agents that are found in meat. So obviously don't go home thinking that meat will get you cancer. Everything can get you cancer, but in meat there is these molecules called nitrosamines, and these are dangerous because they can induce the cells into hyperproliferation. And so vitamin C can reduce them and protect you from them, okay? When vitamin E gets oxidized, it has no mechanism to go back to normal by itself. And so vitamin C comes in and then helps it go back to the non-oxidized form, okay? And I'll show you this in a second. Vitamin C also is very important for iron absorption. This is why if you don't take it's very hard to not get enough vitamin C, okay? You have to be like skilled at it. It's almost impossible, okay? Pretty much everything that you eat has vitamin C. And so it helps with iron absorption, and actually its discovery was linked to iron absorption. If you remember, I told you about scurvy. You can treat scurvy just by supplementing vitamin C, okay? So how do we regenerate vitamin E? So we have vitamin E in the cell membrane. Vitamin E gets attacked by a radical. Now it becomes kind of more toxic than before. And so the way you bring this back to normal is by making it react with vitamin C, the ascorbic acid form. And when the ascorbic acid form takes up the radical, it becomes dihydroascorbic acid. And then obviously you can bring those two protons back to convert it here, or you can also use glutathione. Okay. So one very important concept to remember, oxidation is a cycle. One molecule touches the other touches the other, and then it just keeps going until you reach a point where you basically have too much damage, and now your repair mechanisms get damaged themselves, and this is what leads to kind of death, okay? Very briefly, my PhD was studying the effect of these on aging, okay? And aging if you want to think about it in terms of molecular way, it's just the accumulation of damage through time. And as the damage becomes more prominent, it starts affecting your repair mechanisms, because those repair mechanisms get damaged themselves. And so depending on which part of your body is weakest, it will fail first. If it's your heart, probably heart attack. If it's your lungs, whatnot, okay? And so technically you can keep humans alive very long if you're able to take care of this thing. But the cells, they have this ability, but unfortunately with time they become damaged themselves and they cannot repair the damage, okay? What I mean by this is that your glutathione gets damaged itself, the catalase gets damaged itself, the superoxide dismutase gets damaged itself, and then it becomes less efficient, okay? Make sense? So my research was to study the effect of many antioxidants on aging and cancer from plant origin, okay? And this was done in the lab of Titarenko. If you probably heard of him, but I don't think so. I think he's too old. Okay, how much vitamin C? So the RDA for vitamin C, 90 milligrams per day for men, 75 for women. Why? Just difference in body fluid amount. The upper limit. So this number here is, you can take more. This number here is kind of a limit that was put by Health Canada and by the NIH, but in reality, you've probably ate more than this. Just one tablet of vitamin C is 1,000 milligrams. And so 2,000 seems like a lot, but if you eat 2-3 oranges or whatnot, you're already pretty close to that, okay? Obviously, this is quite far from this. So the RDA, again, is just the minimum you need to be healthy. Smokers will require more vitamin C because this vitamin C, that the minimum that they need to take will be too busy quenching oxidation, and so you'll need more for the rest of the functions, okay? And from healing, surgery, burns, obviously, because damage requires this to quench all the oxidative. Burns cause oxidative damage, surgery, injury, they all cause this oxidative damage, okay? Damn, I said oxidized like a lot. Where do you get it? Well, red peppers. It's not oranges. Red peppers have a lot more, well, actually almost the same amount as oranges in terms of, no, they have a lot more than oranges, which is kind of surprising, but red peppers have a lot more vitamin C. I thought in my head that it was oranges that had the highest amount, but nope. Again, same thing with the other stuff. It's destroyed by cooking, so because of the heat and oxygen interacts with it, and so you can minimize the loss obviously by steaming your food and whatnot, but it's best to eat fresh vegetables and fruits, okay? And this applies to all the vitamins. They are heat sensitive, and so they get destroyed by heat, so this is why you have to eat fresh fruits. So what happens when you have too much? When you have too much, it's just excreted. You can take a lot, but just as a limit, they put 2,000, but obviously, if you're very old and you're taking more than that, it can cause other problems, but it's very hard to get intoxicated on vitamin C, okay? If you take too much of it, it can affect people that have another problem, okay? So there are people that have this disease, hemochromatosis, which causes excess iron accumulation in the body. And so if you add to it vitamin C, you're adding more absorption of iron, and iron is toxic, okay? So by itself, taking too much of it will not really will not bring your iron to the point where like it's becoming toxic. But if you have this problem and you're taking too much vitamin C in a very high amount, you can kind of speed up this issue, okay? exacerbated, let's say. Make sense? If you don't take enough of it, that's a different story. So scurvy, if I've been repeating this word for the whole semester, in French it's scorbut, you probably heard of this. And basically, what happens is that it affects your gums because it has a role with, it plays a role with collagen, okay? And collagen is what makes up pretty much all your gums and many other parts of your body. And so if you lack vitamin C, then you're not going to be able to produce these collagen fibers, which are important for the structure of your gums, muscles, body, and whatnot, okay? And they don't heal properly because vitamin C is important for healing. It has even been linked to depression, okay? Anemia, obviously, because of its secondary effect on iron. If you don't absorb iron properly because you don't have enough vitamin, then you will get anemia. Stomach cancer, this I told you about. Meat and processed foods contain these nitrites, and so these nitrites get converted to nitrosamines, which are cancer-causing compounds. Okay, so vitamin C prevents this conversion. Collagen, how does vitamin C assist in collagen synthesis? So you have these collagen fibers everywhere in your body, and they're basically just intertwined chains of collagen, and so vitamin C is the linker between them. Okay. It's the connective tissue between muscles, bones, and whatnot. Okay. Beta-carotene. Damn, I thought it was going to be quicker, but I guess not. So we might take a break. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is beta-carotene. So carotenoids are pigments that are found in fruits and vegetables and plants. This is what gives color to these plants, to these fruits and whatnot. And there's over 600 of them. Okay. The most important for us are alpha-carotene, beta-carotene, beta-cryptoxanthine, lutein, lycopene, and zeaxanthine. Okay. You don't need these, so there's no RDA for them. But beta-carotene gets converted into vitamin A. Okay. So you don't need these. If you don't take them, nothing will happen to you. But these are very good for your health. So beta-carotene looks like this. And beta-carotene, when you break it into two, right in the middle, it gives you 2 molecules of vitamin A. Okay. So if you eat food that is rich in beta-carotene, you'll be subsequently making vitamin A. Okay. The body can only convert, of the 6 that I told you about, you can only convert alpha, beta, carotene, and beta-cryptoxanthine to vitamin A, which has another name, retinol. Okay, let me tell you something crazy. So the lab I'm working in right now, the professor is called Vincent Giguère, okay? He's the one that discovered the receptor for retinoic acid, okay? So we've been talking about vitamin A for a long time. Well, that's basically the guy, and he's here from Montreal. And he discovered 8 other receptors, the ones that you read in the book, so big guy, okay? I used to think that these guys are like in the States or in whatever Louis Pasteur Institute, but in reality they're pretty close here. So now you can tell people that the guy that worked on vitamin A and the receptor that it binds to is at Medkour, okay? So back to this. One important thing is that it's not a 1-to-2 relationship. And what I mean by 1-to-2 is that you don't just take one beta-carotene and that gives you 2 molecules of vitamin A. Your body has other uses for beta-carotene, okay? So you need 12 micrograms of beta-carotene to produce 1 microgram of vitamin A, okay? And again, because vitamin A comes from multiple sources, for example, it comes from vitamin A itself and from beta-carotene, then we use that similar notation, retinol activity equivalent, alpha tocopherol equivalent, right? So now I think it's a bit clearer, right? So when you hear retinol activity equivalent, it means how much of vitamin A equivalent do you have in that supplement, which means that the source is not necessarily just vitamin A, which is retinol, but also can be beta-carotene, okay? This is why we use this terminology. Okay, for the millionth time, it protects against oxidation, but it's not a strong antioxidant like vitamin E or like vitamin C. It also protects the lipids in the cell membrane. They are, beta-carotene is apolar, and so it likes membranes. This is why it can protect the membranes, because it usually stays close by. Helps the immune system, again, for the same reasons. Protects the skin from the oxidizing effect of the UV ray. Protects the eyes and delays age-related vision impairment. So, good stuff. Where do you find beta-carotene? Right here. So, mostly vegetables, usually of the orange type or of the green, dark green, okay? And so, as I told you, it does not have any RDA that is established, so it's not an essential nutrient, but consuming about 6 to 10 milligrams a day can help reduce cancer and heart disease, okay? The food sources, red, orange, deep colors, let's say. The only different thing is that it's resistant to heat. So heat, it actually likes heat, because heat helps its absorption in this case. Okay. So the way to remember this, heat, beta-carotene is okay. The rest, they don't like heat. Simple. Okay, so there's no known deficiency symptoms, but if you take too much of it, it's not toxic, but your skin will become yellowish, orangish, like this. Okay, so this is called keratinosis, and it's reversible just when you stop taking beta-carotene. Okay, just no need to supplement. Just eat the right amount of fruits and vegetables, and that should be quite okay. Okay, the dangerous guy, vitamin A. So, vitamin A is fat soluble, just like vitamin E. It's stored in the liver. So, and it's active in 3 forms: retinol, retinol, and retinoic acid. They all have retina in it. So already there you have to remember that vitamin A is very good, very important for vision. Retinoic acid receptor was discovered here by, well, not here. It was in California, but by a Quebecois, Vincent Giguère. And so retinol, the way we write it on foods, on supplements and on foods, is using these retinol activity equivalents, because vitamin A can come from many sources, including beta-carotene and whatnot, and so we use this terminology. And it basically indicates how much active vitamin A is available to the body after being converted. So when the beta-carotene is broken down and whatnot, how much of it is available for the body. Okay. You can also use international units, right, on the food labels, and they each have their own kind of linked to in terms of micrograms. So 1 retinol activity equivalent is equivalent to 1 microgram retinol, and then that's equal to 12 micrograms of beta-carotene. Remember that 12 micrograms of beta-carotene gets converted into 1 microgram of retinol. Am I losing you? And then these numbers, you don't need to learn them by heart, okay? I'm not going to test you on this. I'm not crazy. It's just to explain to you how to read the food labels and the supplements if you ever get to see them. Because obviously the purpose of this class is just not to test you, but it's also so you learn something that you can use, right? And then 1 retinol activity equivalent is equal to 3.3 international units. So If ever I have to ask you on the final exam to calculate stuff, I will give you the constant, okay? So just maybe remember 12 micrograms of beta-carotene is 1 microgram of retinol and whatnot, okay? Good. So the three forms, they mostly have similar effects on the body. Retinol gets converted into retinol, which gets converted into retinoic acid. Retinol can go back to make retinol, but retinoic acid does not go back. There's no enzyme that converts retinoic acid into these two. They're important mostly for vision, sexual reproduction, bone health, immune function. Okay? I'm talking about reproduction and cell differentiation, so this means growth. So vitamin A is extremely important for growth. Okay. Okay, what's the link with seeing? And what's the link with antioxidants? So vitamin A also scavenges radicals from the LDLs, just like the others. It does not. There's no specificity, right? It's whatever gets oxidized and has the ability to quench that will interact with the radicals, be it A, C, E, and whatnot. Okay. In your eye, the way that your eyes are able to see, okay, you have two types of cells. One of them is called the rod cells. The rod cells are the light-sensitive cells, and they have at the interior of them something called rhodopsin. Rhodopsin is the one that gets the light and detects the light, okay? Inside of rhodopsin, you have vitamin A. So vitamin A is at the core of rhodopsin and will basically get oxidized by the light, and because it gets oxidized by the light, it will leave the rhodopsin, and this is what signals your brain that something, that light just hit it, okay? So let me repeat. The oxidation of vitamin A inside your eye is what signals your brain that there is light. Okay? Simple? So as you can see, oxidation is not bad all the time. Sometimes oxidation is good. For example, you need oxidation to be able to see. Cool? So this is why eating your carrots is good, okay? The functions of vitamin A, very important for your digestive system. Why? Because it allows for the differentiation of epithelial cells into mucus-secreting cells. And you remember from lecture 2 that your gut has these cells, which produce bicarbonate to protect your gut from the damage of the hydrochloric acid, right? Your lungs require this mucus also to protect the lining from whatever pathogens comes in. Urinary tract and your cornea as well. Cool? In terms of immune system, vitamin A is very important for the differentiation of T cells. It's important for sperm production and fertilization. So if the person is deficient, then they become kind of infertile temporarily, let's say. Bone growth as well. How much do you need? 900 micrograms a day. So it's not a lot. For men, you need 900 micrograms. For women, you need 700. And it's just linked to the different body masses. Okay? Pretty much. What's the maximum you can take without it being toxic? 3,000 micrograms a day. Okay? Basically 3 milligrams. And where do you find it? In these foods. Liver, eggs, dairy, fortified foods. In plants, obviously, plants have all the vitamins, okay? Because they are rich in those carotenoids, and those carotenoids, some of them can be converted into vitamin A. Additionally, they have vitamin A themselves, okay? This is just for your own information. Believe it or not, beef liver has a lot of vitamin A. Okay, what happens with too much vitamin A? Well, I just told you that it affects reproduction. It affects reproduction, it affects cell division, and so if you have too much of it, it can lead to the baby having birth defects. Okay, this is why before getting pregnant, you usually have to go do some checkups to make sure that your levels of vitamin A are normal, because the fetus can actually absorb it. Okay, so this is dangerous. It affects pretty much everything in your body, so you get all these symptoms. Blurred vision is the one that probably makes sense. The others maybe you are not aware of. Okay. So if we go back to lecture number 1, where I was talking about the liver king that eats 1 liver every day, what do you think about his about his ability to get kids? Do you think he's probably not, right? The reason for that is that if you ate too much liver, as shown right here, which is very rich in 75 grams of liver is going to give you about 6,000 micrograms, which is 2 times above the upper tolerable intake limit. And I just told you in the slide before that it affects your, where is it? Sexual reproduction, bone health, and whatnot. Okay, so you can just start linking up stuff. Cool. I don't know. Who knows? Just a little information from this side. Maybe I'm gonna get sued for defamation or some shit. Okay, not enough vitamin A. So this is me. This is me. So when I was 17 years old, as I told you, maybe in the first lecture, maybe you don't remember, I used to weigh like 42 kilograms or 32. Oh no, I was 32 kilograms at 17 of age. That's like very low. It's basically a high school, not even elementary school kid, okay? I also, so that my growth was basically stopped, right? I was maybe here in high school. Imagine high school, 5th year, like this. I had, right before the diagnosis, I had an ulcer, so the H. pylori. In my hand, I had these kind of small bubbles appearing for some reason, okay? And my cornea, they discovered within the same time that I had a disease called keratoconus, okay? Keratoconus, what happens is that your cornea becomes like a cone. And so because it becomes like a cone, the light does not come in properly. And so now you need to kind of, sorry for the details, but remove the cornea and then replace it, okay? I was basically becoming blind with time. So I had all of this stuff here, right? So imagine you're like not going through puberty, you don't know what the hell is happening, you're 17, you're going to CJAP, and you're still talking like, you know, kind of weird, you know? And so we went to the doctor, and the doctor was trying to figure out what the hell was happening. So the first thing they did was a blood test, and they found that my vitamin A was low, but they found many other things that were low, okay? And then the next thing is what affects absorption, right? Because you have many things that are not being absorbed properly. I don't remember if vitamin A was low or not, but I assume it was because of all the things here. Next thing you know, I had celiac disease. And if you remember, celiac disease affects your villi. If you don't have the villi and the enterocytes, because they are broken, then you don't absorb, and then everything appears, okay? The moment I started the diet, within maybe a few months, I started like just flying, okay? So that's that, okay? So this is why vitamin A is quite important and quite dangerous, actually. If you want to see the difference between having the right amount of vitamin A and not, this is probably how you guys see. This is how someone with a low vitamin A sees, okay? Sounds weird, right? And then obviously if you're going from one room that has light to no light, your eyes take more time to adjust. And it's just because you're lacking that vitamin A in the eye. And well, you're not lacking it. You have, but in very low amounts. And so it does not get oxidized. And so it does not signal to the brain that there is light, okay? What else can I say about this? I don't remember seeing like this. But one thing that's interesting maybe for you guys is the surgery to treat the keratoconus is actually adding retinol, so vitamin A, to the eyes as droplets. So first they scratch it off, they add vitamin A, and then they use a laser to kind of repair it, okay? So vitamin A, super important. Simple, good story, a little bit of a little kid voice over there. The last thing that I want to talk about, and obviously it's not the only thing. There's copper, zinc, iron, they all can act as antioxidants. I just want to focus on selenium. Selenium is one example of minerals that I want to give you in this class. It is part of the enzyme that I told you before, the glutathione peroxidase. So you remember it from the vitamins E to C glutathione peroxidase. It has many roles, but because it is required for glutathione peroxidase, it will help with taking care of the free radicals, okay? It interacts with them. It plays an important role in the production of the thyroid hormone, which is important for regulating your metabolism and body temperature. And it plays an important role in immune function. Obviously, I keep repeating the same words non-stop: antioxidant, immune system, you know, radicals. And so on the exam, if you're not sure, just think it affects everything. So try to link it to whatever the answers are. Minerals are less forgiving than vitamins. So their upper tolerable intake limit is much smaller, okay? This is why we have to be careful with these, okay? So these are the numbers. These are the sources, okay, where you can find them. This is just for your information. I don't want you to learn this by heart. Okay, we're almost done. Do we just finish it and that's it? Yeah? Simple? Cool. Okay. Now, minerals, though, it's not like vitamins. Minerals, they can be quite toxic, okay? And this, I think you understand this pretty well. So minerals, the danger with minerals is that if you supplement, you can actually hurt yourself. So this is why when you go and you buy the Centrum, well, there's a Centrum for women and men, and it's not just because they're trying to market different things. You see one that is for 50-year-old and higher, one that is for kids. It's because the upper limits for those age groups are different. And so if you take the supplement from, let's say, your boyfriend or husband or whatnot, and you're a woman, the iron in it is going to be too high for you if you do it chronically, okay? So selenium actually can be toxic, and it will basically destroy your skin. You can take a look at the skin. It can break your bones, kind of the structure of your bones. It can cause cirrhosis in the liver. If you don't have enough of it, then it can lead to heart disease in children, arthritis, right? This is what I was trying to refer to. Impaired immunity comes back everywhere, so that's it. And this is what I just said. Copper, zinc, manganese can help the enzyme superoxide dismutase, and so they're important for antioxidation. Iron is important for catalase. Copper, iron, zinc are important for your blood. Manganese is a cofactor in carbohydrate metabolism. So these are all antioxidants, and there is more of these, okay? At the beginning of the semester, we were talking about this vitamin P, and then I told you that it was called vitamin P, but then it was discovered that it's not essential, and so the name vitamin P was removed. Well, that's a group of molecules that are actually antioxidants. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, so usually scientists, what they like to do is put their name everywhere. And it's understandable, right? If I discover something, it's going to be called Younes. But what happens with these things is that with time you discover that maybe what you think you had discovered is not actually something huge. And so because the world consensus says that vitamins need to be essential and your vitamin P is not essential, then it's not going to be called a vitamin, okay? So, diseases. Pretty much all diseases, okay? Even diabetes can be affected by free radicals. So free radicals can play, for example, on insulin sensitivity. Free radicals can cause heart disease. If you remember, I talked about the LDLs, cancer. I'm going to talk about a few of these, okay? Let's start by cancer. So cancer, if you didn't know, it's one cell dividing that goes beyond. So normally when the cells are dividing, when they touch each other, they stop because they know that there's no more space. But then sometimes you have these little cells that decide to not respect that, and they just start dividing at random places, okay? This creates a mass in your body, and that mass can actually, does not kill you. So if the mass appears here on my hand, we'll just cut it and that's it, right? But sometimes it appears in places where it can become harmful, and or where surgery is not possible. For example, if you have a tumor on your sphincter, which is important for your digestive system, you cannot do a surgery to remove the sphincter, okay? And so the way to treat it is through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, okay? Chemotherapy and radiotherapy both are oxidants. They oxidize the tumor cells, okay? How do oxidants cause cancer? Through many different ways, but the main way is the mutagenesis of the DNA. So if you have an oxidation of, let's say, a nucleotide in the middle of a gene that's important for cell division, and that makes the gene produce a protein that is always active, well, then the cell is always going to be dividing non-stop, okay? And so cancer has 3 stages: initiation, promotion, and progression. When it progresses, this is where it becomes kind of dangerous because it can travel to other places. And when it travels to other places, this is where the real damage happens. In reality, cancer is not dangerous, okay? Because your body is able to deal with it, and you're able to do surgery to remove the tumor. The problem with it is when it starts dividing too fast and you cannot take care of it. That's where you kind of lose the ability to control it. And if you've actually had someone in your surroundings that had cancer, the treatment is not always the best option. I'll tell you why. So the cancer itself, it's just dividing cells. Nothing happens to you. If it happens in a place where it can actually prevent the function of, let's say, your heart, then it becomes dangerous. But if it's on your skin, for example, maybe not. You can just do a surgery. Now, if it grows too big and then the cells start moving in your body, it's on your skin, but you left it, and then it goes through the lymphatic system, now it can reach other organs and cause damage. Treatment is not always the best option because it can actually turn the cancer resistant to the treatment. And so this is like bacteria with antibiotics. If you give them too much antibiotics, they become resistant, and then you cannot treat them anymore. Well, because cancer cells divide as quickly as bacteria, or not as quickly as bacteria, but a little bit faster than normal, and they don't stop, it has the same effect on generating mutations that can protect from the treatment, okay? And this is where it becomes quite dangerous. Additionally, the treatment makes you weak. And so if you undergo chemotherapy, and you've seen people that undergo chemotherapy, you'll see that they start becoming kind of feeble because it affects your blood cells, your rapidly dividing cells, right? And so and your immune cells. And so that can lead to getting actually infections. And if you get infections, while you're under chemotherapy treatment, it can lead to something called sepsis. You guys know sepsis? Sepsis is basically just your body going crazy, and this is usually most of the time it's the treatment that kills. Okay. There are a few cancers that have treatments that are very efficient. For example, certain breast cancers, you just give it these hormones, and they will deal with it. But there are others that are untreatable and that mutate super fast. Okay. So one of them is lung cancer. So lung cancer, you know, these numbers are weird, but basically tobacco has a lot of chemicals and poisons, and 50 of them are known to cause cancer. Yet for some reason the government allows its sale and whatnot. But there's 50 of them that can cause cancer, and lung cancer is one of the most dangerous ones, because when you have a tumor in your lungs, it prevents you from breathing, all right? And so this is why it's dangerous. Antioxidants actually help protect you from this, right? If you take antioxidants, they help you with decreasing the cancer risk. And if you didn't know, your body right now probably has some cancerous cells, but they're benign because your immune system is able to kill them, right? It's only when they become malignant that then you have kind of a problem. Cool. Little information from what I've observed in the world. So in Canada, I've been here for maybe, 20-something years. With time, I've seen the amount of people smoking cigarettes decrease. Okay. There are countries in the world where people basically smoke all the time, okay, including my country. So I think it was in 2010 or something that the government put this rule where you can't smoke, you have to stay 9 meters away or whatnot. Well, there are countries where people smoke inside the airport, just like walking around, no problem, okay? But for some reason, lung cancer is much higher in Canada than those countries. Why? The only thing I can link it to, and this is not like science, okay, this is just my observation. In those countries that I'm talking about, we drink a lot of tea, like almost every day. The breakfast usually is maybe, I'd say like 50% of the people drink tea, okay? Tea is a very good antioxidant. So how come there's more smokers but less cancer than a country that has less smokers but more cancer? I'm thinking part of it is their intake of antioxidant. But again, this is just my observation throughout the past few years, okay? If you've ever heard of shisha, that's like basically smoking so many cigarettes in like 3-4 hours. Well, in these countries that I'm talking about, it's like the whole day, right? But for some reason, if you look online for the amount of lung cancer, you'll see that it's much lower than the Western world, let's say. Weird, right? The reality is probably due to this stuff, okay? To the diet. So the diet has a big effect on your risk of cancer, okay? I know you guys are finding this weird. Probably the other profs would not be talking about this stuff because they have probably no clue about it, but yeah, some up-to-date information. Okay, I think this I said. The antioxidants enhance the immune system. The immune system is very important for getting rid of the cancerous malignant cells. It removes these benign cells before they become malignant. Some of them can even inhibit the cell growth, right? And they prevent the oxidative damage to the DNA, which is the main cause of cancer. Cardiovascular disease, very quickly. Atherosclerosis, plaque, right? If you have oxidized LDL, the immune system will come, and that's not good because it will just create those foam cells and add to the plaque. So antioxidants prevent the oxidation of LDL. If they prevent the oxidation of LDL, then you have less cardiovascular disease, okay? Additionally, oxidized LDL can break out and release part of the plaque, which can travel to your brain, break an arteriole in there, blood seeping out, and then you have a stroke because there's too much pressure on your brain. Okay? So antioxidants protect from all this stuff. Inflammation, low-grade inflammation can cause this too. So inflammation can also break up the plaque in your vessels, and that can lead to the plaque traveling to your brain and closing the blood supply for the same reasons I just explained. One way to measure inflammation is the CRP marker, the C-reactive protein. You've probably seen it if you've done some blood tests. This tells you that if you have inflammation or not. And so when you associate it with cholesterol, it can be a pretty good indicator on your risk for a heart attack. Okay? So this is one way to figure that out. So if you have high cholesterol and high CRP, the doctor is probably going to freak out because you're at risk of heart attack. Okay? Because you just need part of that plaque to dislodge itself, and that's it. It's just going to travel until it reaches the end of the arteriole, which is super small, and block it. And if that happens, you have it explodes, and then you have hemorrhage, and then a stroke. What else? This I said. Okay, last thing for the eyes here, and then we go. So, as you get old, your eyes start to see less. There's two main problems that you get. One of them is macular degeneration. The macula is at the end of your eye, right? And so if it deteriorates from the oxidative effect, what happens is that you're going to start to lose your ability to see, and you will basically start seeing like this. Okay? So you just have something in the middle and you don't see anything. Okay? So this is macular degeneration. Cataract, anybody knows this? Probably had a parent that had it or whatnot. The eye becomes kind of grayish and you don't see anything. This is caused by oxidants. And so to protect from these, what's the solution? Antioxidants, right? And to finish, the research does not show that you can cure with these, but it shows that it can help prevent, okay? Macular degeneration and cataract. Okay. Mixed results. Still ongoing research. Cool. Hopefully that was not too fast. See you next week.